Okay, here we go. We're in the middle of the Shmona Asr Dvarim, the 18 enactments, the 18 Gezerot that Bet Shammai passed that day in the attic of Hananiah ben Chizkiah ben Garon, when all the rabbis met up, and there were more rabbis in Bet Shammai, and they passed those 18 enactments. And now we're trying to get through what are the 18 Gezerot. We saw last week somebody who ate Rishon of Tumah, he's a Sheni. Someone who eats a Sheni of Tumah, he's a Sheni. Someone who drinks drink that's Tameh is a Sheni with Tumah and can make Poisel Truma and make Truma a Shlishi. We saw somebody who was a Tvul Yom. He went into the mikvah. And after the mikvah, he went into a bath of drawn water. He'll become Tameh because they don't want people to think that the bath makes them tar. And then we said any person who walks into a shower and has 3 lugan of water poured in him right away is considered tamei as well. And because I don't want to think anybody that the shower is making them tahar. And so we saw Sefer, but let's go back to Sefer because it's already one sugi over here. So the Sefer, and what was this? That the Chachamim, that during that time they made a gzera that the Sefer Torah is considered a sheni l'tuma. So if something touches the Sefer Torah, it gets tuma. And the Sefer Torah can make truma tamei because it's a sheni. It can make it a shlishi. So the Gemara's question is, my time because we're about tuma. Why in the world would the Chachamim put tuma on a Sefer Torah? So I'm Rashi says shebetchila hayu matniin et ochalin de truma etzel Sefer Torah. V'amru hi kodesh v'hi kodesh. Right, so they had to keep truma kodesh. Have to keep truma tahar. Where to keep it. So they said, listen, we have a Sefer Torah here. Sefer Torah is very holy. Truma is also considered holy. So we'll put the two holies together. And they put them together. The only problem was when the when the Truma, which is food, is near Sefer Torah, the rodents, the weasels, the mice, whatever comes to eat food is not going to differentiate between a parchment and between food. They're going to eat everything. They're going to gnaw on everything. So that's what happened. Keeping the kachazu the ka'atul l'deif seda, when they saw the Sefer Torah is getting ruined because that the truma was put right next to the Sefer Torah, gazer rabbanan tuma. The Chachamim put tuma on the Sefer Torah and said anyone who the truma touches Sefer Torah, it's going to become tamei. It's going to become tamei to shlishi, which truma could become tamei to shlishi, and it's going to ruin the truma. You're not allowed to do that. And people are very careful because it's aser. Now, obviously, the question that many Mefarshim deal with is why didn't the make Xera? You're not allowed to put truma next to a Sefer Torah. Why didn't they say it that way? Why did they say Sefer Torah is considered a sheni l'tuma? So the Mefarshim answer, they have to say it that way because if they just said don't put the truma next to Sefer Torah, many people would not have listened to it. They didn't take the rabbi seriously. Whatever, it's okay. You know, they come with excuses. But when it comes to Tuma, they were very, very careful when it came to Tuma Tahara. So as such, once she says Tahara is Mitame, Truma, that they were very, very careful with. And that's why the Gezerah had to be made this way. Okay, that we saw last week. And now we continue. The Hayadayim and the hands. Stam Yadayim. Stam Yadayim, regular hands, it's considered a sheni le tuma. Okay, this is again, all this is derabanan. There's no such thing as tuma on a Sefer Torah. It's derabanan. Same thing here. Hands. There's no such thing as my hands become tamei. It's either I'm all tamei or I'm all tahar. There's no in between. Hands are tamei. Chachamim made that hands are considered tamei. That's why we have to do netilat yadayim. Now, why do we make netilat yadayim? So let's see. Because the hands are busy. To explain Rashi, "V'nogain v'vsarai uvmakam tenufas v'genai l'truma b'kach v'nimeis l'oslin kishenogea baba yadayim." So therefore, shemanagu b'tuma v'nitmaem. So they made this is what Rashi is saying. Rashi is saying that people have dirty hands, they're going to touch truma, and then the truma is going to become disgusting to them because it's dirty now, and they won't eat it, and it's going to get ruined. And you're not allowed to make truma get ruined do that. So therefore, in order to prevent truma from getting ruined, they made sure that you have to wash your hands first. And since they made this gezerah by the teruma, they then put this gezerah for everybody when it comes to netilat yadayim for bread, right? The whole thing, the minute gezerah, that you have to wash your hands before eating teruma because your hands are considered tameh. Therefore, you have to wash them netilat yadayim, and that makes it tahor. But if we give this gezerah just for the kohanim, it's not going to stick. Therefore, they made it for everybody when it comes for bread and for when you touch produce that is that you dip into something or you're getting wet from something like karpas into salt water, or if the grapes were wet or something like that. We're supposed to wash our hands until you're name for that. Okay, most people don't do that anymore. Ashkenazim don't do that. Many people don't do that anymore, but because should have. But that all is from this because the Netilat for bread is from this because you have to do it for Truma. So Truma is mostly bread, right? So that's why it was passed to everything. And the Netilat Yadayim is the way to take off the Tuma of Stam Yadayim. Tana, it was taught in the Braita. This is not one of the 18. Okay, so now we're going to see another Gezerah that was put. Af Yadayim Habaot Mehamat Sefer. Poslot et hatiruma. If a person touches a Sefer Torah, his hands also become a sheni letuma, and he can make a truma shelishi mishum de Rabbi Parnach. And it's because of what Rabbi Parnach said. The Amar Rabbi Parnach, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Ha'ocher Sefer Torah arom. Someone who touches a Sefer Torah that is beer, meaning that without a covering, without a mitpaha, without a kerchief, without the remol, without one of these things in between the talit, the gartels, etc., without one of these, nikbar arom. He'll be buried without tachrichem. He'll be buried without the burial shrouds. He's going to be buried naked because he touched Sefer Torah arom without a covering. He will be buried without a covering. So some of the Farshim say, and what's so bad about that? It's going to be better for him. He'll become faster getting kapara. So, and actually the Gemara says, Arum Salki Datach, do you really mean that he buried beer without shrouds? You see, the Ritva says, he suggests that to be buried without shrouds is hardly a punishment at all, since it can serve as an atonement. As it's written, right, you should return to the dust. Se'ela Amar Bizera. Aron below mitzvot. No, it means he'll be bare without any mitzvot. Someone touches Sefer Torah without something in between. Then he'll have all his mitzvahs will be erased. The Gemara says, "Well, mitzvah he's going to lose all his mitzvahs for such a small thing. It's not one of the big three. What did he really do already?" So Ela Ema Aron below Ota mitzvah. He'll be without that mitzvah. And you take a look at the bottom toast of the below Ota mitzvah. Im achazol limod bo ein lo sachar shel Ota limud. If he was planning to learn and he touched it with his hands, he loses the whole schar of learning. V'im bishvil legol lelo. And if he did it to do glila, to close it up, and which is a main mitzvah, ein mikav schar ala glila. He doesn't get the schar of glila. Okay. So yeah, very important not to touch the sefer, not from outside, not from inside, with our bare hands. Again, the only exception is if there was no other way to get to it, right? The sefer has to fix it, needs to touch the parchment. You're trying to roll it up from one place to the other, and it's stuck. And the only way to get it is if I move it with my hands. Then you move with your hands. I've seen certain gaboyim, they actually had a certain set of gloves that they would have, and they would use it to sometimes turn the Sefer Torah because they have to do it with their hands, and they don't want to touch it with their hands, so they would put on gloves, so they're not touching the Sefer Torah directly. If a person does have to touch Sefer Torah directly, he should wash his hands Netilat Yadayim beforehand, because our hands have Stam Yadayim are Sheniot hand, right? So they're Sheni Tumah. Therefore, he should wash it before he touches it, although he will get Tumah again from touching the Sefer Torah. Hi, Gazu B'Desha. Which enactment was first? That Stam Yadayim are a Sheni, or a Sefer Torah, you touch the Torah with your bare hands, you become a Sheni. Which one was first? If you say that regular hands are considered Tameh is first, why would I need the second teaching of touching Sefer Torah makes your hands a Sheni? If my regular hands is a Sheni, then of course my hands are going to be a Sheni. So Sefer Torah touching is going to make it a Sheni. How does that add anything to it? So rather, the first decree was someone who touches the Torah, his hands become a sheni l'tumah. V'hadar then gazru b'chulu yadayim, and then they said no, the regular hands are considered also sheni. Okay, so that is that our 18 gezerot actually came after the gezerah of the Sefer Torah. Touching Sefer Torah makes your hands a sheni. Okay, so now we continue, and the Gemara says. We had in the Mishnah in Zavim that we were trying to get the list of the 18 Gezerot. One of them on the list was Utvul Yom. A Tvul Yom. So what's a Tvul Yom? Somebody was an Avatuma, and he went into the mikvah. Now he's in the mikvah, and he goes during the daytime. However, he does not become tahor until nightfall. As the pasuk says, "Uvar shemesh v'taher, v'achar yochakal min hakadoshim ki lachmoi hu." So he waits for the sun to go down, and then he can eat from Kodesh, then he can eat from Truma, right? And that's the beginning of Masechtas Brachos, where it says, when can you say Arvit? From the time the Kohanim, right, go out at night, right? They're Tvul Yom, and now they waited for the night to go down, and now they can eat Truma, right? So that's Tvul Yom. So Tvul Yom says the Gemara, that's not a Rabbanan. The 18 Gezerot are part of Rabbanan. The Rabbanan put on enactments. They put on Gezerot. But Tvul Yom D'Oraitahu of all Shemesh V'Taher. So how could that be on the list? Marshall, you're right. Sami Mikan Tvul Yom. Take off from the list. It's not on the list. Yes, it's in that Mishnah, but it's not on the list of the 18. The Mishnah there is bringing down every case that you are a Sheni. And a Tvul Yom is considered a sheni for truma, even though he went to the mikvah. So therefore, take it off the list. It's true that it's a sheni l'tuma, but it's not true that it's one of the 18 gezerot. Okay. So the next one on the list was v'ha'ochalin shenitzme'u b'mashkin, and foods that contracted tuma from liquids. Foods that contracted tuma from liquids are considered sheni. So the Gemara says, "B'mashkin demai." Which liquid are we talking about? Okay, so the Gemara's question is as follows: you're telling me food that becomes tamei from a liquid. Which liquid? If you're saying it's a liquid that a tuma touched, meaning a sheretz touched it, a dead creature that's considered one of the 8 shratzim, right, touches this water. So the sheretz is avatuma, the water is a rishon, and the rishon can make a food a sheni. So where's the gezer derabanan? That's not a gezer derabanan. That's a deraita. Elav and mashkin abayim machos yadayim. You know what we're talking about? The case of derabanan. The rabbanon say that your hands are a second level tuma. Now, if your hand is second level tuma and you touch water, so you would think it becomes shlishi. No, it does not. It becomes a rishon, and then it touches another food. That food becomes a sheni. So a second degree, the hands touches water. The water should be third, but no, it goes to be a first, right? And then it can make another one a second. Why did they make the gzera? Because I don't know if this liquid is a liquid that's tamei via hands, or if this liquid is tamei via a avatuma. Liquid could technically be a rishon. Therefore, they were more strict with liquids. Why were they more strict with liquids? So if you take a look at note 13 in the article 14b2, it says over here that liquid has a lot to do with tuma. Food cannot become tamei unless it first touched a liquid, right? Liquid first touched it. What's this called? Hechsher, right? It's hechsher and mekabel tuma. It can be now come and it's prepared to mekabel tuma. So since liquids make food become tamei, liquids could become a rishon. So there's reason to be more strict with liquids. So here the Chachamim said that a liquid that touched the sheni, a sheni of derabanan, touches the liquid now becomes a rishon derabanan, and they can make another food a sheni derabanan. So you have here derabanan, and that's the gizera. Okay. And the next list in the final item in the Mishnah in Zavim was v'hakelim shenitmeu v'mashkin. Kelim that got tamei from liquid. And the Gemara again wants to know which kelim are we talking about. Now, really, kelim usually do not become tamei from liquid. Kelim has to become tamei from an avatuma. They cannot become tamei from a liquid. Liquid is usually a rishon. Food and drinks are usually a rishon. So, which case is this? How does this work? Oh, you know which kelim is this? They tell me mashkin demai. Which liquid was it? Oh, I have a case of a liquid that's an avatuma. If the person himself is an avatuma, his liquids are considered a avatuma. For example, a zav, says the Gemara. But it's not only a zav, a nida, a yoledet, a metzora. All of these are an avatuma, and their liquids, their secretions, whether they're spittle, their urine, anything that comes from them, is also considered an avatuma. So, and now it touches the keli. Okay, now it makes sense that the keli becomes tameh, right? Yeah, mashkin is up, but that can't be the case deoraita, because that is a deoraita. And so much so that even if the spittle was in a cup and the Torah person was holding that cup, that Torah person becomes tameh because it's a way of getting tumah via masa, which is called carrying. Carrying can also make a person become tameh. So if he touched the spittle of a zav or a nida or something like that, or he just carrying it, the tumah passes along. So that is a deoraita. So where do you have a derabanan like that? So says the Gemara, El b'mashkin habaim mahmat sheretz. Okay, really, the avatuma is here a sheretz. Touches the water. The water now is a rishon. Okay, so how is it making kalim tameh? Kalim don't become tameh via a rishon. Ugzera mishum mashkin dezav. But since sometimes there is a liquid that can make kalim tameh because the mashkin of a zav, the secretions and the liquids of a zav or nida, yulazim from the tzayram, they can make a keli thing. So therefore, we made exera that a rishon latuma can also what's it called? A rishon also can make a keli tameh. So here we have it. Here we have it that what's it called? A derabanan, right? Because this liquid is a derabanan tuma, shouldn't be anything, and it's now going to be a making the liquid tameh rishon, right? And then it's going to be considered making a keli. It's going to bump it up back up to an avatuma, so to speak, and make a keli, a sheni, and making it to be able to make something else a shlishi. So basically, in this case, the derabanan is a keli becomes a sheni via a liquid, which is never really possible deoraita. From an avatuma become a rishon, and if it's a rishon, it cannot become a sheni, but here it does. So that was the Gezerah. So let's just take a look on 14b3 in note 20, I think the third paragraph. This enactment imposed upon tummy liquids a power to contaminate articles on account of secretions which can contaminate articles by biblical law. No such thing by persons. Fine. Articles that contract tumor from secretions can back up are tummy by biblical law, whereas those that contract tumor from liquids are tummy by rabbinical. No, however, the rabbinical case, the articles are rishon, whereas in the rabbinical case, they are great and sheni. The rabbis in the legislation did not match the biblical law as regards to it. The point of the decree was to prevent any contact with truma, and hence the article will be declared tameh and forbidden to be used with teruma. They put it only on a second level. Truma, the rabbis decree that even liquids that are rishon can contaminate articles, which in turn become a sheni. Right. And this is the only instance ever found of article being contaminated by tuma that is not a av. Okay. So if you want to take a look, Okay, we have here in the Gemara 3 categories of tamei liquids. Av, by biblical law, namely secretions. Rishon, by biblical law, liquids tamei from Misharetz. And Rishon, by rabbinical law, liquids tamei from a unrinsed hands. Category A. Av, by biblical law, can contaminate both articles and foods by biblical law, right? So Av Tuma, the secretions of a Zav, can contaminate everything. Category B, a Rishon, by biblical law, so the sheretz touches the water, can contaminate foods by biblical law, but not articles. However, the articles do become tamei by rabbinical law. That was that's what we just saw. Then we have Rishon by rabbinical law, contaminates both foods and articles, obviously on rabbinical law. Okay. So here we go. So this Rishon can even be a case like this, according to this Gemara right now, as we just saw, that the guy's hands are a sheni, touches water. That water backs up to a Rishon. That Rishon water now touches a Keli, and the Rabbanan, the Keli becomes a Sheni. That's how far the Gezerah went. Okay? Now, Gemara backs up and says via dime, the rinsing of the hands, saying that unrinsed hands are considered Tameh. You're telling me this is Tamidei Shammai v'Hillel Gazur? That the students of Shammai and Hillel, the way the Gezerah? But that's not true. Shammai v'Hillel Gazur. Really, Shammai and Hillel made the Gezerah, not just their students. The Tanya, if I was told on the right, Yossi ben Yoezer, Ish Tzereid of Yossi ben Yochanan, Ish Yerushalayim, they were the Zugot, the Nasi and the Av Beitin. They made a Gezerah, Gazru Tuma al Eretz Ha'amim. They made a Gezerah on the nations of the world, on Chutz La'aretz, because they don't take care of their mace and their dead correctly, and we don't know where their graves are. So all of Chutz La'aretz is considered Tameh. Ba'al Keli Zechuchit. And glassware, which there's no source in the Torah that glass should become tamei, but they made a gezerah that it is. Shimon ben Shatach tiken ketuvah leisha. He instituted a ketuvah for a wife. Now that's not true. Ketuvah was already in biblical times. So what did he institute? Well, originally the ketuvah, you had to set aside the money, the article, that whatever you're going to use for the ketuvah payment on the side. It had to always be there, available to go. And what happened was, unfortunately, people said, you know what, it's already prepared, take it and go. And they divorced their wives. Go, it's already there, take it and go. Shimon got rid of that. And he basically said she can now choose where she wants to get the ketubah payment from. And as such, now it would make it harder on the husband to divorce her because now he has to give from the good stuff. And he doesn't have it prepared. So that's what Shimon ben Shatach instituted with ketubah. Tikkun ketubah lisha. He fixed up the ketubah for Isha. He made it better. Remember, the first ones to champion women's rights was the Jewish people. They made a ketuvah, which is pretty much a prenuptial, to give her they shouldn't get divorced willy-nilly, and then if they do, she has a source of income or whatever, some sort of assets that she goes out with. Shammai v'Hillel gazur tuma al yadayim, and Shammai and Hillel, they made a gezerah on the hands. So you see Shammai and Hillel, not the students of Shammai and Hillel. Chitema maybe means Shammai v'siato v'Hillel v'siato. Maybe means Shammai and his students and Hillel and his students. You can't say that. When they made this gezerot that day, Beit Hillel was arguing with Beit Shammai. They argued on it. But Hillel and Shammai only argued in 3 places, and this is not one of them. Shammai and Beit Hillel only had 3 arguments. Shammai and Hillel died. Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel had over 300 arguments, right? But on this, they didn't have an argument. Shammai and Hillel, so you can't say that was their shita. Maybe you're going to say no. Maybe the original Gzeira of Shammai and Hillel was that if Stam Yadayim touches Truma, you shouldn't eat it, but you shouldn't burn it either. Remember, usually Truma, that's tummy, you have to burn it. No, so don't burn it, just leave it until it rots. Okay? And then Beit Shammai and Hillel said, no, it's completely considered tummy, and you have to burn it. It's not a suffix, it is definitely tummy, and you have to burn it. Ilfa said that can't be the case. Why? Because Yadayim, Chilat Gezertan, let's say, once they said that Yadayim can make tummy, originally, right away, they said that if it touches Truma, you have to burn that Truma. It's legit Truma, and you have to burn it. So, Elo Atu Inhu Gazer, like Kiblu Minayu, Atu Tamideh Gazru, the Kiblu Minayu. So, what really happened was Shammai and Hillel, they are the ones who instituted washing your hands. And that Stam Yadayim are considered tummy, and people didn't accept it, right? People did not accept it. It didn't stick, and it wasn't. It didn't happen. Then Tamido Gazru and then there stood with Shemab Hillel at a later date. They made Xer again, and this time it did stick. Okay. Now the Gemara says Akati, but still, really did Shemai and Hillel Gazer this? Shlomo Gazar. Shlomo HaMelech made Xer. Damar Yehuda Amar Shmuel. B'shah shetiken Shlomo and Reuven Utilat Yadayim. When Shlomo HaMelech made the tikkunim of Eruv and Netilat Yadayim, Eruv being Eruv Chatzerot, when you have different private domains that all lead to the same place, you cannot carry between the different private domains unless you make an Eruv Chatzerot. You take some bread and you say we're all sharing in this bread, right? The bracha on Eruv Chatzerot, Mitzvot Eruv, and then you put the bread away, and everyone else can carry into each other's private domains. This is what Shlomo Melech instituted, and until Yadayim. Shlomo Melech instituted it. Why wasn't it instituted before Shlomo Melech? Well, if you remember, Shlomo Melech had what's called Pax Salomon. That was a time of the peace of Shlomo HaMelech, and at that point, now he can make, you can make tikkunim, you can make chumros and stuff like that at a time of peace. Now that's why it was added on during that time. So Yatz Bat Kol V'Amra, the heavenly voice went forth and said, B'nei im chacham libecha, yismach libi gam ani, chacham b'ni v'samach libi, v'ashiva chorfi davar. Right, my son, if you're wise, it makes me glad. I'll answer back to whoever disgraces me. So King Solomon was the one who decreed tumah on the hands, not Shammai v'Hillel. It says the Gemara, Ata Shlomo, when King Shlomo Melech came, Gazer lekodashim. He made it for korbanot. The Tilat Yadayim was needed for korbanot, to eat korbanot. Va'atu inhu ve'Hillel and Shammai. And then later their students came, the Gazur af l'teruma. They made it even for teruma. So that's how the development of the Tilat Yadayim worked. Okay. Interestingly, the Chachamim added on that for korbanot, not only the tilat yadayim, but you're going to do tevilat yadayim. You have to dip your hands into a mikveh, and that is the way it is afterward. After the Chachamim came, they changed it to tevilat yadayim. One piece of Gemara left. Gufa, Amar Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, Shmona Aser Gazru. It says that they did when they were passing these 18. There were 18 things. Gazru Shmona Aser Nechlaku, and Bet Hillel argue on all of these 18. Vatanya, but it was taught elsewhere. Hushbu, they agreed. So did they agree or did they argue? It says the Gemara, when they were trying to pass it, Beit Hillel argued. Ulimachar hushbu. But on the day later, they agreed. Interestingly, you see that they argued, right, on that first day. They argued also on Stam Yadayim, which was originally Hillel's Shita. Right, Shammai and Hillel both agreed to washing hands for Stam Yadayim, and yet the students of Bet Hillel were arguing that when Bet Shammai students were trying to pass it. So we see from here that if a rabbi's shita, let's say your rabbi's halacha didn't stick and people didn't accept it and it wasn't done, looks like you don't have to follow by it, and you can actually choose the other opinion because it wasn't an established halacha. All right, anyway. We have a lot more to go through. We've only seen 9 of the Gezerot. We still have 9 more. And another 2 dafim about this Gezerot, another Gezerot, where Shammai and Hill argue, where they don't argue. So there's a lot more to see. Me'ezat Hashem. Put it off the record.